The Earth is full of empty spaces, places so remote that maps don't bother with them, places where you can be completely, utterly alone. The people in these stories thought that was the point. They wanted solitude, but they got something else. Tonight, we're exploring 6 terrifying encounters from the most isolated corners of the world. Let's begin. The Valley. I moved to the country for the quiet. That's what everyone says, right? Tired of the city, tired of the noise, tired of neighbors who play music at 2 a.m. and never pick up after their dogs. I wanted space. I wanted silence. I wanted to wake up and hear nothing but birds and wind and the sound of my own thoughts. I found a place in rural Victoria, Australia. Small town called Smeaton. You've never heard of it. Population maybe 250, if that. The house sat near a valley drop-off leading down to a creek. Beautiful spot. Isolated. Perfect. The first week was everything I dreamed of. Woke up to sunrise over the valley, made coffee on the porch, listened to the birds. No traffic, no sirens, no people. Just me and the land. Then I noticed the trail. It appeared overnight. A clear path through the underbrush on the opposite side of the valley, leading straight up to the fence line of my property, like something had walked the same route so many times that the grass had stopped growing. I told myself it was kangaroos, wallabies, something native. Australia's full of animals that make trails. Nothing to worry about. A few nights later, I couldn't sleep. Made myself a cup of tea around 2 a.m., sat in the dark living room, just watching the moonlight on the valley. Peaceful, calm. Then I heard it. Leaves rustling. Outside. Coming from the direction of that trail. I walked to the window, peered out. At first, nothing. Just shadows and trees and the faint silver of the creek below. Then I saw movement. A figure running down the valley slope. Fast. Too fast for a person. It disappeared into the trees before I could make out any details. I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. The next morning, I checked the fence line. The trail ended right at the property boundary. No footprints I could see, nothing disturbed, just that worn path through the grass, leading to my back fence and stopping. I told myself it was an animal. A big one. Kangaroos can move fast. Maybe a feral dog. Nothing to worry about. I started keeping a diary, just in case. November 3rd. Happened again tonight. Almost asleep when I heard footsteps running up the valley. Fast. Deliberate. Like whoever it was knew exactly where they were going. I got up, turned on every light, waited by the window. Nothing. Just silence and darkness. November 12th. They cut the fence this time. Woke around 11 p.m. to a metallic screech, grabbed my flashlight, ran outside. The chain link was sliced clean through. Bolt cutters maybe, neat, professional. But whoever did it just left. Didn't enter the property. Didn't take anything. Just cut the fence and disappeared. I installed a padlock on the gate. Heavy one. Felt stupid doing it, like I was expecting a burglar in the middle of nowhere, but the feeling wouldn't leave, that crawling sensation on the back of my neck. Like someone was watching. November 15th. Woke up this morning to find the entire side fence flattened, cut down on both ends, the whole section just lying on the ground. No reason, no sense, just destruction. I called the police. They came, looked around, took notes, said there'd been reports of vandalism in the area. Local kids, maybe, or druggies from across the creek. They'd look into it. November 18th. Police called back. They'd arrested some local troublemakers, drug users, petty criminals, charged them with property damage. Case closed, they said. I wanted to believe it. I really did. November 23rd. Window smashed in last night. Side window, the one facing the valley. I don't know how I didn't wake up. Glass everywhere. Broken inward like someone had climbed through, but nothing was taken. Nothing disturbed. I checked the outside. Around the window frame, there were scratches. Deep ones, like someone had clawed at the wood trying to get a grip. I called the police again. They said they'd look into it. Their tone was different this time, less certain. December 1st. It's not the druggies. They're still in custody, haven't been out in weeks. This morning, I found footprints in the yard. Not normal footprints. Too big. Way too big. Size 15, maybe 16. Deep impressions, like whoever made them was heavy, and they led from the fence line to the house, circled it twice, and went back. I bought a security system, 4 cameras covering every angle, set them up that afternoon. That night, I didn't sleep. Just watched the monitors. Nothing happened, but I felt it. That weight, that pressure. Something was out there. December 5th. I'm writing this from a motel 40 miles away. I'm not going back to that house. Last night, I checked the footage from the previous 2 days, scrolled through, looking for anything unusual. At first, nothing. Just the yard, the trees, the valley. Then, on the footage from December 3rd, around 3 a.m., I saw it. A shadow, just beyond the tree line. Tall, too tall, standing perfectly still, facing the house. I watched for another minute. Nothing moved, just that shadow, frozen in the darkness. I scrolled forward. 3:15 a.m., still there. 3:30, still there. 4 a.m., gone. I checked the other cameras, found it on 3 different angles at different times, circling the property, watching, waiting. On the final night, the night before I left, I captured something else. At 11 p.m., something emerged from the trees, not a shadow this time, a figure, tall and impossibly thin, with limbs too long, joints that bent wrong. It moved slowly, deliberately, dragging itself up the valley toward my house. It stopped at the fence line, just stood there, staring. At 11:30, another joined it, then another. By midnight, there were 5 of them, spaced evenly along the property boundary, all facing my house. They didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stood there, watching. At 1 a.m., one of them approached, walked to the back door, stood on the porch, pressed its face against the window. I could see it clearly on the monitor. Pale skin, dark eyes, no mouth I could see, just a face that shouldn't exist. It stayed there for 10 minutes, then it turned and walked back to the others. At 4 a.m., they left, all at once. Just melted back into the trees. I was out of that house by sunrise, packed what I could carry, drove to the nearest motel, and haven't been back since. I don't know what they were, I don't know what they wanted, but I know they were waiting for something, watching, circling, getting closer each night. The police think I'm crazy. They reviewed the footage, what little I showed them, and said it was probably just shadows, lens flares, my imagination. They didn't see what I saw. I moved to the country for peace and quiet, for solitude, for the silence, and I got it. And now I know why no one else lives out there, why the house was so cheap, why the real estate agent got so quiet when I asked about the neighbors. There are no neighbors, not human ones at least, and whatever lives in that valley is still there, still watching, still waiting for the next person who thinks they want to be alone. The footprints in the sand. I've been camping my whole life, started as a kid in Scouts, kept doing it as an adult. I've slept in every kind of wilderness you can imagine, forests, deserts, mountains, plains. I know the sounds, I know the risks, I know how to be safe. But nothing prepares you for the moment you realize you're not alone. This happened about 3 years ago, late October in Colorado. I'd taken a week off work to do some solo camping in the Rabbit Valley area, west of Grand Junction near the Utah border. Beautiful country, remote, desolate in the best way, the kind of place where you can go days without seeing another person. I drove out on a Tuesday afternoon, parked at a trailhead about 15 miles from the highway, shouldered my pack, and hiked in about 4 miles to a spot I'd scouted on satellite. Flat clearing, good views, no signs of recent use. Perfect. I set up camp as the sun was setting, teepee-style tent. I'd had it for years, solid construction, survived dozens of trips. I built a small fire, cooked dinner, watched the stars come out. The sky out there is something else. No light pollution for 100 miles, just endless black velvet sprinkled with diamonds. Around 10 p.m., I banked the fire and crawled into my tent, fell asleep within minutes. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. Could have been midnight, could have been 3 a.m. But I woke up suddenly and I knew immediately that something was wrong. Not a sound, not a movement, just that primal feeling, the one that says you're being watched. I lay there in the dark, completely still, listening. At first, nothing. Just the normal silence of the desert at night. Then I heard it, a sound, soft at first, then clearer, like someone dragging their fingers up and down the nylon of my tent, slowly, deliberately, circling around the outside. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just lay there, heart pounding, listening to whatever it was walk around my tent, touching the walls as it went. It circled once, twice, 3 times, each pass slower than the last. I reached for my flashlight and my knife. Held them both, ready. The circling stopped. Silence. Then I heard it move away. Footsteps in the dirt, fading into the darkness. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. Nothing. I started to relax. Told myself it was an animal, a curious coyote maybe, or a deer bumping into things. Happens all the time. I was just starting to drift back to sleep when it happened. The tent collapsed around me, not slowly, not gradually, all at once. The poles snapped, the fabric came down, and suddenly I was trapped under a pile of nylon in the pitch black. I thrashed, tried to find the zipper, tried to get out. The fabric was wrapped around me, suffocating, disorienting. I couldn't tell which way was up. I found the zipper finally, pried it open with shaking hands, and crawled out into the cold night air. I stood there, gasping, heart slamming against my ribs, scanning the darkness with my flashlight. Nothing, just my collapsed tent, my scattered gear, and the endless black of the desert. I grabbed my rifle from where I'd left it leaning against a tree, grabbed my keys, ran for my truck, didn't look back. I made it to the truck, threw myself inside, locked the doors. Sat there for a long time, engine running, heater blasting, waiting for my heart to stop racing. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, just sat in the driver's seat, watching the darkness through the windows, waiting for dawn. When the sun finally came up, I got out, walked back to my campsite to retrieve my gear, and that's when I saw them. Footprints, all around my tent. Dozens of them, circling the site, leading to the trees, leading back. Not animal prints, human prints, shoe prints, clear impressions in the dirt and the light dusting of snow that had fallen overnight. Whoever had been out there, they'd walked around my tent for hours, circling, watching, waiting. And when they got bored of that, they collapsed my tent. I packed up fast, didn't look for tracks, didn't try to follow them, just grabbed my gear and got out of there. I reported it to the ranger station when I got back to town. They took a report, nodded sympathetically, said they'd keep an eye out, but I could tell they didn't think they'd find anything. They probably won't. I still go camping. Can't stop. It's in my blood. But I don't go alone anymore. And I don't use a tent that can be collapsed from the outside. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in my bed at home, I think about those footprints. Dozens of them, circling my tent in the dark. How many were there? One person walking for hours? Multiple people taking turns? I don't know. I'll never know. But I know this. Out there, in the remote places, you're never as alone as you think you are. And sometimes, when you hear something in the dark, it's not an animal. It's someone who wants you to know they're there. The eyes between the trees. I moved to New York for law school a few years ago. I lived in the city, but I'm from Spain originally. Small town, lots of mountains, lots of hiking. I grew up in the outdoors, Boy Scout my whole life, even became a scout leader for a while. I know the woods. I know what sounds are normal and what aren't. I know how to stay safe. But America's wilderness is different. It's bigger, emptier, older in a way that's hard to explain. This happened in September 2023. Me and 3 friends, all from Spain too, decided to do a road trip. Drive up to Canada, circle Lake Ontario, then come back through upstate New York. Just a fun trip. See the nature, you know? For the last night, we booked something special, an off-grid cabin in the middle of nowhere. No electricity, no running water, no phone service, just pure wilderness. Me and one of the boys, Devin, we had experience camping. The other two, Paul and Charlie, pure city guys, never slept without phone service in their lives. We'd been driving all day. By the time we reached the forest, it was past 10 p.m. Dark, really dark. Raining too, had been all day. Our GPS cut out, so I was navigating by intuition and a paper map, driving on muddy trails, hoping we were going the right way. Paul and Charlie were in the back seat. The moment they lost phone service, they got quiet, uneasy. I could see them in the rear view, just staring out the windows at all that darkness. Then we saw it, a campfire, in the middle of nowhere. No houses around, no people, just a fire burning in the dark. Well organized too, not spreading, not huge. Just a fire in the forest with no one tending it. We all saw it, all four of us. It startled us, but we were also trying to find the cabin, so we kept driving. Turned out we'd taken a wrong trail, had to backtrack. Half an hour later, after a couple more wrong turns, we finally found the place. This cabin, God, it was old. Logwood, falling apart. Outhouse in the back made of rotten planks. The kind of place you see in horror movies and think, no one would actually stay there. We did. Me and Devin went in first with flashlights, found some old lanterns, got a small fire going in the stove. The boys came in, we made pasta, we tried to make it fun. S'mores, a couple beers, normal camping stuff. While I was cooking, Paul came up to me, whispered so the others wouldn't hear. He said, "On the way here, I saw something, an old cemetery in the woods, and there was a figure walking around it." I laughed, told him it was probably just shadows, his imagination being tired. He swore to God, in Spanish. That's serious. You don't swear to God unless you mean it, and he swore he wasn't lying. I told him I believed him, locked all the doors, tried to forget about it. The boys went to sleep early, all three in a loft bed upstairs, accessed by a little ladder. Me downstairs on a bunk that looked older than my grandfather, but I wasn't tired. I love the outdoors, you know? Rain, darkness, silence. It's peaceful to me. So I grabbed my last beer, took a flashlight, and sat on the front porch, just listening to the rain, watching the dark, enjoying not being in the city for once. I scanned the tree line with my flashlight. Nothing. Just trees, a creek in the distance, darkness. Then I heard it. A roar. Not loud. Not like a movie monster. Just a deep, guttural sound from somewhere in the woods. My first thought was, it was a bear. But I'd researched this area. Bears aren't common here, and it didn't sound exactly like a bear either. It was different, somehow. Primal. I kept scanning with the flashlight, heart starting to pick up, and then I saw it. A figure. Deep in the tree line, hidden, but visible. Tall. I'm 6'4", and this thing was at least a foot or two taller than me. Maybe more. I think it had brown fur, or skin that looked like fur in the dark. It blended with the trees, with the autumn leaves, but its eyes didn't blend. Two eyes, catching my flashlight, glowing back at me. It was bipedal, standing on two legs, arms that looked long, too long, just standing there, watching me from the dark. We looked at each other for maybe 5 seconds. Felt like an eternity. Then it vanished behind a tree, and I heard another roar. That's when every hair on my body stood up. That primal fear, the kind you can't control. I went inside so fast, I don't remember crossing the porch, locked every door, closed every curtain, and sat in the dark, listening. I didn't sleep for hours, just sat there, waiting, heart pounding. Nothing happened. Eventually, exhaustion took over. I fell asleep. Next morning, sun was out. Beautiful day. I went outside, looked at the tree line where I'd seen it. Nothing. Just peaceful forest, birds singing, creek flowing. I never told the boys. They didn't want to hear scary stories. We had breakfast, packed up, drove back to the city. But I've thought about it a lot since then. What was it? I know what I saw. I know it wasn't a bear. I know it was tall, bipedal, watching me from the dark. I posted about it online later, asked if anyone had ideas. Some people said skinwalker, some said crawler, others said I was just tired and imagining things. I wasn't tired, I wasn't imagining. I saw what I saw. And sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about those eyes, catching my flashlight, watching me from the tree line, and I wonder if it's still out there, still watching, still waiting for the next solo camper to sit on a porch with a beer and think they're alone. Because out there, in those remote places, you're never as alone as you think, and some things don't want you to know they're watching. Others do. The factory that remembered. I've been an urban explorer for about 10 years. It started as a hobby, just me and a few friends, sneaking into abandoned factories, old hospitals, places time forgot. There's something beautiful about them, the way nature reclaims what humans built. The silence where machines once roared, the stories left behind in broken furniture and faded signs. I've explored maybe 50 abandoned buildings over the years, never had a bad experience. A few creepy moments, sure, a noise here, a shadow there, but nothing I couldn't explain. Until this one factory. I won't tell you exactly where it is, not because I'm protecting some secret location, but because I genuinely don't want anyone else to find it. Some places should stay forgotten. I found it through an old forum post. Someone had mentioned a textile factory in Northern Europe, built in the 1920s, abandoned in the 1980s after a mysterious fire. The post said it had been left completely untouched since then. No vandalism, no graffiti, just a time capsule waiting to be opened. I drove there alone. Stupid, I know, but my usual exploration buddies weren't available, and I couldn't wait. Something about that factory called to me. The drive took me through miles of empty countryside, past small villages with shuttered shops, through forests that seemed to grow darker the closer I got. By the time I reached the factory, the sun was already starting to set. I should have waited until morning, but I didn't. The factory sat at the end of a long dirt road surrounded by trees on all sides. It was massive, 4 stories of dark brick with rows of shattered windows staring out like empty eyes. A chimney rose from the center, tall and skeletal against the orange sky. I parked my car a quarter mile away and walked the rest. Didn't want anyone seeing my plates, not that anyone was around. The whole area felt dead. No birds, no insects, just silence. The main entrance was chained shut, but I'd expected that. I circled the building until I found a basement window with the glass already broken. I squeezed through, dropping into darkness. The first thing I noticed was the cold. Not just regular cold. This was deep, penetrating cold that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I pulled out my flashlight and looked around. I was in what must have been the old boiler room. Massive rusted machines lined the walls, their pipes reaching up into darkness above. The floor was concrete, cracked and covered in decades of dust. My footprints were the first marks in that dust, at least I thought they were. I found stairs leading up. Wooden, old but solid. I climbed to the ground floor. The main factory floor was enormous. Rows of old looms and spinning machines stretched into the distance, their shapes barely visible in my flashlight beam. They looked like skeletons, like the bones of some giant creature that had died where it stood. I walked slowly between them, shining my light at each machine. Some still had fabric hanging from them, rotted and gray with age. Others had tools left on their surfaces as if the workers had just stepped away for a moment and never come back. That's when I noticed the dust. On most of the machines, the dust was thick and even. Decades of accumulation. But on some, the dust was disturbed. Fresh marks, like something had been moving through recently. I told myself it was animals, raccoons maybe, or other explorers. This place wasn't as forgotten as I'd thought, so I kept walking. At the far end of the factory floor, I found a door. Metal, heavy, with a small window covered in grime. I pushed it open and stepped into a hallway. Offices, probably. Small rooms on either side with glass windows looking out. I shone my light through the first window and froze. The office was furnished. Desk, chair, filing cabinets, all old, all covered in dust. But on the desk, there was a coffee cup, and next to it, a newspaper from 1982, the year the factory closed. I stared at it for a long time. The paper was yellowed, brittle, but it was there. Someone had left it. Someone had been sitting at that desk, drinking coffee, reading the news, and then just walked away. I tried the door. Locked. I moved to the next office. Same thing. Desk, chair, coffee cup, newspaper, all from 1982, all locked. Every office along that hallway was the same, perfectly preserved, frozen in time, and all locked. At the end of the hallway, there was one more door. This one was different. Wooden, older than the others, with a handle that looked worn from decades of use. It was unlocked. I pushed it open and found stairs leading down. Basement level, darker than anything I'd experienced so far. The air was thick, heavy, smelling of rust and something else. Something sweet and wrong. I should have turned back. Every instinct was screaming at me to leave. But I didn't. I went down. The basement was a maze, narrow corridors, pipes running along the ceiling, doors on either side. I walked slowly, my flashlight cutting through the darkness, my footsteps echoing in the silence. That's when I heard it. A sound. Faint at first, then clearer, coming from somewhere ahead. A rhythmic banging, like metal hitting metal. Steady, deliberate. I stopped, listened. The banging continued. 4 beats, pause, 4 beats. The same pattern, over and over. I moved toward it, slowly, carefully, trying to make no sound. The noise led me to a door at the end of a corridor, heavy, metal, with a small sliding window at eye level. The banging was coming from inside. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me needed to see. I slid the window open, just an inch, peered inside. It was dark. Too dark to see much, but I could make out shapes. Machinery, maybe, and movement. Something moving in the darkness. The banging stopped. Then I heard breathing. Heavy, wet breathing, coming from inches away from the window. I slammed the window shut and ran. I don't remember the run back through the basement. Don't remember climbing the stairs, crossing the factory floor, finding the basement window. I just remember running, blind panic, terror so complete it erased everything else. I made it to my car, threw myself inside, locked the doors, and drove. Didn't stop until I was 50 miles away. I haven't been back. I don't think I ever will. But here's what I can't stop thinking about. That basement corridor, the locked offices frozen in time, the rhythmic banging, and that breathing so close to the window. Who was down there? How long had they been there? Were they trapped? Hiding? Waiting? I've told this story to a few people over the years. Most don't believe me. Some think I imagined it. One person, another urban explorer, asked me for the location. I didn't give it. Because here's the thing about abandoned buildings. They're empty. That's what makes them safe. The moment they're not empty, they become something else entirely. And whatever was in that basement, it wasn't empty. It was waiting. I still explore sometimes. Old factories, hospitals, asylums. But I never go alone. I never go without a way out. And if I ever find a basement door at the end of a corridor with rhythmic banging coming from inside, I run the other way. The island that appeared overnight. I'm a geologist, spent 20 years studying rock formations, volcanic activity, tectonic shifts. I've been to some of the most remote places on Earth. I thought I'd seen everything this planet had to offer. I was wrong. Last year, I got a call from a colleague at the University of Alaska. Satellite imagery had detected something strange in the Aleutian chain, a new island, small, maybe 2 miles across, but definitely new. It wasn't on any maps. Satellite passes from 6 months earlier showed open water in the exact same spot. They wanted someone to go take samples, figure out if it was volcanic, seismic, something else. I volunteered immediately. New islands don't appear every day. I flew to Dutch Harbor, chartered a boat, and spent 3 days crossing the Bering Sea. The captain was a local guy, been fishing these waters for 30 years. When I showed him the coordinates, he got quiet. He said, "You sure about this spot?" I said yes. "Why?" He shook his head. "Fishermen talk. They say there's something out there, something that moves, appears, and disappears. They avoid it." I laughed, said it was probably just an uncharted island, happens more than you'd think. He didn't laugh back. We reached the coordinates around noon on the 4th day, and there it was, an island, exactly where the satellite said it would be. Steep cliffs of black rock, a dense forest of strange trees, and a beach of gray sand curving along one edge. I took samples from the beach first. The sand was wrong. Not volcanic, not coral, something else. When I looked at it under my handheld microscope, it looked almost like crushed bone. I didn't mention that to the captain. We anchored offshore. I took the dinghy in alone. Captain refused to come. Said he'd wait right there, but he wasn't setting foot on that island. I spent the afternoon hiking inland. The forest was strange, too quiet. No birds, no insects, no animal sounds at all. Just the wind and my own footsteps. The trees were like nothing I'd ever seen. Pale trunks, almost white, with leaves that didn't move even when the wind blew. I found rock formations deeper in, volcanic, definitely, but wrong. The layers were twisted, like something had forced them out of shape. I took samples, marked coordinates, kept moving. That's when I found the structure. Not natural, built. Stone blocks, massive, arranged in a circle about 50 yards across. In the center, a flat altar-like stone covered in carvings I couldn't read. The carvings weren't like anything in any archaeological record I'd ever seen. I stood there for a long time, just staring. My scientific mind was racing, trying to find an explanation. Ancient civilization? Some forgotten culture that sailed here thousands of years ago? Possible. Barely. But something felt wrong. The air was too still. The silence was too complete, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I took photos, lots of photos. Then I got out of there. Back on the boat, I showed the captain the pictures. He went pale, said, "We need to leave. Now." I asked why. He pointed at the carvings, said, "My grandfather told me stories about these. The old people, the Unangan, they had legends. About an island that appears when the spirits want company. About people who went there and never came back. About carvings just like these." I told him it was just coincidence. Ancient symbols often look similar across cultures. He didn't believe me, and honestly, neither did I. We sailed back that night. I spent the voyage reviewing my samples, my photos, my notes. Everything looked normal. Volcanic rock, unusual formations, but nothing that couldn't be explained. Except the carvings, those I couldn't explain. I got back to Anchorage, filed my report, sent samples to the lab, waited for results. 3 weeks later, I got an email from the satellite office. They'd done another pass over the coordinates. The island was gone. I didn't believe it at first, checked the coordinates myself, sent multiple requests for new imagery. Every single one came back the same, open water. Nothing there. I called the captain. He wasn't surprised, just said, "Told you, it moves." I spent the next 6 months obsessed, pulled every satellite image I could find of that region going back 20 years, found the island 4 times, always in different locations, always appearing for a few weeks, then vanishing. Always within a 100-mile radius, but never the same spot twice. I went back 3 times, never found it. Then, last month, I got another call. Different colleague, different project. Said satellite imagery had spotted something strange in the South Pacific. A new island, near the Solomon Chain. Did I want to take a look? I was on a plane within a week. This island was different. Smaller, greener, with white sand beaches instead of black cliffs. But the moment I set foot on it, I knew. Same wrong feeling, same impossible silence. Same sense of being watched. I found the structure within an hour. Same stone circle, same altar, same carvings. And this time, I wasn't alone. There were figures standing around the circle. Dozens of them. People. Still as statues, facing the altar. Not moving, not breathing. I approached slowly. One of them turned. It was the captain. The man who'd taken me to the first island. His eyes were open, but empty. His skin was gray, like he'd been dead for weeks. He opened his mouth. No sound came out, but I heard him anyway, inside my head. A voice that wasn't a voice. "You came back." I ran. Didn't stop until I reached the beach, until I was in the water, until I was back on the boat and screaming at the crew to go, go, go. They looked at me like I was insane. There was no one on that island, they said. Just me. I was alone the whole time. I showed them the photos on my camera. Every single one was blank. Just gray static, like the island didn't want to be photographed. I'm home now, back in Anchorage, back in my office, trying to pretend none of it happened. But I can still feel it. That island, those figures, that voice. It's not just one island. It's many. They move. They appear and disappear. And they're always watching, always waiting. The figures I saw, they weren't just the captain. I recognized others, explorers, sailors, scientists, people who'd gone missing over the centuries, their ships never found, their fates never known. They're all there now, standing in that circle, waiting. And I know, with a certainty that keeps me awake every night, that the islands aren't done with me. They let me go twice. They won't let me go a third time. One day I'll go back to sea. I won't mean to. I'll just find myself on a boat, heading toward coordinates I don't remember entering. And when I step onto that beach, onto that island that shouldn't exist, I'll join them, and the circle will have a new face. Mine. The tree line. I work in mineral exploration. That means I spend months at a time in some of the most remote places on Earth. Helicopter drops, no roads, no cell service, no people for hundreds of miles. Just me, my field partner, and the wilderness. I've done this for 15 years. I've seen things most people only see in documentaries. Bears, wolves, landscapes that don't look like they belong on this planet. I've also seen things I can't explain. This happened about 4 years ago in Alaska. Not the tourist Alaska, the real Alaska. Deep in the Brooks Range, about 200 miles from the nearest village, we were dropped by helicopter for a 6-week survey. Just me and my partner, a guy named Mike. We'd worked together before, trusted each other. That matters when you're that far from help. The first few weeks were normal. Hard work, long days, beautiful country. We set up camp in a valley between 2 ridges near a creek that ran clear and cold. The kind of place that makes you forget there's a whole world of cities and traffic and people out there. Then we found the tree line. I say tree line because that's what it looked like at first, a dense stand of spruce running along the base of a ridge about a mile from camp. But as we got closer, something felt wrong. The trees weren't right. They were too tall, too straight, too evenly spaced. Mike noticed it first. He stopped walking and just stared. "Those aren't natural," he said. I laughed. "What do you mean? They're trees." He shook his head. "Look at them. They're all the same height, same spacing, like someone planted them." He was right. I'd been so focused on the terrain that I hadn't seen it, but once he pointed it out, I couldn't unsee it. The trees were perfectly aligned, rows and columns, like a grid. Nature doesn't do that. We walked closer. The forest was silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just dead quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. At the edge of the tree line, we found the first marker, a stone cairn, old, covered in moss, but clearly man-made. And on top of it, arranged in a spiral pattern, were bones. Small bones. Bird bones, maybe. But arranged deliberately, like someone had placed them there with care. Mike looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us said anything. We kept walking, deeper into the trees. The deeper we went, the more markers we found. Cairns everywhere, each one with bones arranged in spirals. Some had feathers, some had what looked like teeth. Animal teeth, I told myself. Just animal teeth. Then we found the clearing. It was circular, perfectly circular. About 50 yards across. In the center, there was a fire pit. Old, but recently used. The ash was still loose, not packed down by weather. And around the fire pit, in a ring, were human footprints. Not barefoot, boot prints, fresh ones, from multiple people. Mike grabbed my arm. "We need to leave." I nodded. We backed away slowly, not turning our backs, watching the tree line for any movement. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. We made it back to camp as the sun was setting. Neither of us slept that night. We sat by our own fire, rifles in our laps, staring toward the ridge where those trees stood. Around 2 a.m., we heard it, singing, not loud, just barely audible, coming from the direction of the tree line. Multiple voices, low and rhythmic, like a chant. No words we could understand, just sound, haunting and beautiful and terrifying all at once. It lasted maybe 10 minutes, then silence. We didn't move until dawn. The next morning, we packed up and moved camp. 5 miles east, to a different valley. We told ourselves we were being paranoid, but neither of us suggested going back to investigate. The rest of the survey was uneventful. We finished our work, called for extraction, and flew out. On the helicopter ride back, I looked down at the valley where we'd been. I could see the tree line from the air. Still perfectly aligned. Still wrong. I asked the pilot if he knew anything about that area. He said no. Said no one goes there. Too remote. Too rugged. I let it go. But here's what I can't let go. A few months later, I was back home, reading through old exploration reports, trying to find references to that area. I found one from the 1970s. A survey team had been dropped in that same valley. They reported finding unexplained structures and evidence of habitation in an area that should have been completely uninhabited. They cut their survey short and requested extraction. The report didn't say why. I found another report from the 1950s, different company, same area. They mentioned native legends about the valley, something about spirits that lived in the trees, something about travelers who never came back. I stopped researching after that. I still do mineral exploration, still spend months in remote places, but I avoid tree lines now. Any tree line. Doesn't matter if it's natural or not. I look at a dense stand of trees and I see those markers, those bones, those footprints. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in my tent and the wind blows through the branches, I hear it, faint and far away, singing. I tell myself, it's just the wind, but I know the wind doesn't sing in harmony. Out of these 6 stories, which one got under your skin the most? Let me know in the comments. I'll read every single one. And if you want more true horror from the edges of civilization, hit that follow button, because you never know what's waiting in the places where no one goes. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.